Welcome to the Tipping Point Show. I'm Jimmy Evans. We have a great show for you today. Dr. Mark Hitchcock and I are talking about the rapture of the church and talking about the arguments against a pre-trib rapture and what the Bible actually says. And we're going to be proving to you in this show today that the rapture is pre-tribulation. It's going to be very encouraging, but maybe you have people that, argue with you about that. Maybe some of you have questions. We're going to be answering those on the show today. And let me just mention real quickly before I get into the interview with Dr. Mark Hitchcock that we have our conference coming up September 20th and 21st. Dr. David Jeremiah, Max Lucado. We have Ed Young, Pastor Ed Young, who's the pastor of Fellowship Church. That's where we're having the conference this year. We have, Dr. Mark Hitchcock, myself, Billy Crone, Rabbi Jonathan Kahn. We have a fantastic conference. It's going to be Friday night and all day Saturday. So we're adding the Friday night. The price remains the same. Bring somebody with you. Bring a group from your church. Bring neighbors or friends. It's going to be great. But I'm mentioning this today because we have a lot of people signing up. We have reserved seating, so you can go there and reserve your seat. But the seats are filling up. So go on, get your tickets right now. It's going to be a fantastic time. Also want to mention, as I introduce Dr. Mark Hitchcock, we have our new book out. And this is called AI and the Antichrist. It's in our series called What's Next? Our next book, by the way, is on the rapture of the church. And so this is AI and the Antichrist. This is a really great book to help you understand one of the main figures in the Bible, the Antichrist. 33 titles in the Old Testament, 13 in the New Testament talked about. I believe he's just about to show up. So AI and the Antichrist by myself. Dr. Mark Hitchcock is joining me now, and I just want to say he's the senior pastor of Faith Bible Church in Edmond, Oklahoma. And he is a scholar, written over 30 books on the end times, and he's a regular contributor here at endtimes.com. Mark, it's great to have you with me today.
Well, it's always great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Well, this is a show that I've wanted to do for a long time because you and I both, we have people, pastor friends or theologians or whoever, who don't believe in a pre-tribulation rapture. And some very strongly believe in a post-tribulation rapture, a rapture at the end, or maybe a pre-wrath rapture, or whatever you want to call it. So you and I both very strongly believe in a pre-trib rapture. There's going to be the rapture of the church. We're going to talk about that first. But I want to have you as a theologian, because you are a theologian. You've written over 30 books on the end times. And of course, you're a PhD from Dallas Theological Seminary. Yeah. And so you've got and you studied under John Walvoord, under Dwight Pentecost, some of the most famous end-time theologians. And so I just want to have this show as a reference point to people. People right now, they may have questions about pre-trib rapture, but also they may have a lot of friends or family, bothering them and telling them things that are troubling and things like that. So the rapture, the concept of the rapture, where do we find that in the Scripture?
Well, we find it in several places in the New Testament. And really, an important point to make is I think the rapture is only in the New Testament. It's not in the Old Testament. Now, there's pictures of it with Elijah being caught up and Enoch being caught up. But the raptures in the New Testament is called a mystery. In other words, it's something that was never revealed before and that man could never figure out on his own. 1 Corinthians 15 calls it a mystery. But the rapture it's that future event when the Lord Jesus is going to come from heaven. There's going to be a shout, the voice of the archangel, the trumpet of God. And those who've died, believers who've died during this church age, they're going to be resurrected. They're going to get a new body, and the Lord will bring their perfected spirit with him. They'll get a new body. But then he says, those who are alive and remain in 1 Thessalonians 4 will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And that word caught up there is the Greek word harpazo. It's used 13 times in the New Testament. It means to snatch or to seize. It's used, all kinds of different references. But that word, we get the word rapture because a man years ago named Jerome, when he translated the Bible from Greek, the Greek word harpazo, into Latin, he used the word rapio. So we get our word rapture from that. So, people often say, well, the word rapture is not in the Bible. Well, most translations don't have that word. It's a Greek word harpazo. It was rapio in Latin. We call it the rapture, but you can call it the catching away of the saints. But it's that time when the Lord's going to come, and all those who are alive on the earth who know him are going to be caught up to go meet him in the air. We're going to disappear from the earth. There's going to be a global vanishing.
So that's 1 Thessalonians 4, which really is the main text that we have. Is there another text? In other words, is there somewhere else? You mentioned 1 Corinthians 15. Where else do we see the rapture in the New Testament?
Well, I see it in John 14, 1-3. Jesus said to his disciples, don't let your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many dwelling places. If we're not so, I would have told you, I go and prepare a place for you. If I go and prepare a place for you, I'll come and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. So it's revealed there by Jesus. 1 Corinthians 15 says that we're going to be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, when the trumpet sounds. So really, John 14, 1-3, 1 Corinthians 15, verse 50 and following, and 1 Thessalonians 4, 13-18. Those would be the three main ones, kind of the three classic texts. There's many others that mention, the Lord's coming is mentioned over 300 times in the 260 chapters in the New Testament. So it's a frequently mentioned topic, but those are kind of the places where it's mainly clustered together.
One in every 30 verses in the New Testament refers to the return of Jesus, okay, either to the rapture or the second coming. So it's a very common thing. So there's a couple of chapters. You mentioned John 14. So Jesus said, I'm going away to prepare a place for you, and I'm coming back to receive you into myself. So in Luke 17, and Jesus is talking here about the rapture. He's talking about his days. His return will be like the days of Noah. And I want to talk about that as a text of proving the pre-trib rapture. But he says, I'm going to come. And then he talks about he's going to come like the days of Noah. And he says, two people be in one bed, one taken, one left. So in John 14, where Jesus says, I'm going away and I'm going to come back and receive you to myself, the word there is paralambano. And so receive is paralambano in the Greek. When Jesus in Luke 17 says, two people in one bed, one taken, one left, two women grinding at the mill, one taken, one left, the word taken there is the word paralambano. It means to receive into yourself. Yes. So when he's describing the rapture there, he's saying, I'm going to come. John 14, he says, I'm going to come back. Luke 17 and Matthew 24 speak specifically about how that's going to happen, like the days of Noah and Lot. And so let's talk about, I'm going to go to Matthew 24, because this is where a lot of people get confused. And I want to get your input on this. So there's two texts from Matthew 24, one talking about a post-trib gathering of saints, the other talking about a pre-trib rapture. So this is Matthew 24, beginning in verse 27. As the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will fall from the heaven, the powers of the heavens will be shaken, then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. Then all the tribes of the earth will mourn. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So that text causes a lot of confusion, because it's very clearly talking about at the end of the tribulation, immediately after the tribulation of those days. He's also talking about a gathering of the saints from the four corners of the world. Okay. Here's another text from Matthew 24 that is a completely different reference related to a rapture. Matthew 24, 30, beginning in verse 36. But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven. He's again talking about his coming, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so also will be the days of the coming of the Son of Man. For as in the days before the flood. Now, in the other text, he says immediately after the tribulation of those days. Here, he's talking about his coming as it was in the days of Noah before the flood. They were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah, he's talking about a specific day in history that Noah got on the ark before there was a flood. He says, until the day that Noah entered the ark and did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be. Then two men will be in the field. One will be taken, paralambano, the other left. Two women will be grinding at the mill. One will be taken, the other left. Watch therefore, for you do not know the hour your Lord is coming. But know this, if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore you be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you don't expect. So talk about those two texts there and what you believe related to one being obviously the second coming and the other one being a rapture.
Well, yeah, there's two different viewpoints on this. One is that you've mentioned that this is talking about the return, and then this is talking about the rapture. Others would say this whole passage is about the return, because they'll say, whenever the flood came, it says the flood came and took them all away. That what it's saying there, the flood took them away to judgment. That these people were taken away to judgment and destroyed, and that's the way it'll be at the return of Christ. These people are going to be taken away, and those who are left behind are left then to go into the millennium. So you can see it two different views here. The people being taken away are taken away into judgment, like the people were at the flood, and the people who are left behind will be left behind to go into the millennium. Whereas at the rapture, it's going to be the opposite of that. The unrighteous are going to be left behind. The righteous are going to be taken. So even if this is a reference here to the return of Christ when he comes back at his second coming, it's still a picture here of what will happen at the rapture.
Right.
Because at the rapture of the church, the righteous are going to be taken and the unrighteous are going to be left. So it just depends on whether you see in Matthew 24 a continuation of him talking about the return, or you see him shifting then from talking about the return then to talking about the rapture. In either case, yeah, it's clear that at the rapture, when the rapture comes, the unrighteous are going to be left behind,
right,
and the righteous are going to be taken to heaven to be with Christ.
So, and now I have heard people say, pastors say, that when the rapture happens, the unrighteous are taken, the righteous are left behind. But 1 Thessalonians 4 says we're going to meet the Lord in the clouds in the air. Okay, so it's not here on earth. The rapture.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to be taken to go meet him in the air. Yeah, that's right. We're going to be caught up to meet the Lord in the air. But those who see this passage here in Matthew 24 as a continuation about the rapture or the second coming or the return, what they would say is what this is talking about here is that you've got two people. One's taken away to judgment, and the other one is left on the earth, to go enter into the millennium. So it just depends on whether you see this is talking about the rapture, the two in the field, one taken, one left, or it's a continuation of the speaking about the return of Christ. And people hold both views, and people that are pre-trib hold both views.
Yeah.
Of that, because that doesn't violate the pre-trib rapture at all.
Yeah.
To hold that other view.
Well, my argument, Mark, and I want you to see if you agree with this. See, when Jesus in Matthew 24, he says, "For as in the days before the flood, they were eating, drinking, marrying, and giving in marriage." In Luke 17, and this is a parallel verse or parallel passage, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be also in the days of the Son of Man. They ate, they drank, they married wives, and they were given in marriage until the day Noah entered the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise, as it was in the days of Lot, they ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. But on the day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven to destroy them all." So at the end of the tribulation, people say there's going to be a post-trib rapture. At the end of the tribulation, there's not going to be buying, selling, marrying, giving in marriage, and planting and building. Is there, after all the judgments that have hit the earth? Business as usual?
Yeah, no, that's the difficulty of seeing it that way and talking about not knowing the day or the hour, because people during the tribulation period will pretty much know the time of the return.
Absolutely.
They're going to know, now they may not know exactly the day or the hour it's going to take place, but they'll know pretty close to when it's happening. So that's the difficulty of taking this related to the second coming, is the surprise of it, the business as usual aspect of it. That's what favors, I think, seeing this here, as a reference to being the rapture. And, they don't know the time. And like you say, people are just kind of going on doing what they're doing. It doesn't seem like by the time you get to the end of the tribulation period that it could be that way.
Yeah. Well, planting, building, marrying, giving in marriage, it all speaks of hope for the future. Why are you getting married? For the future. We want to spend our lives together. Why are you planting a crop? Hope for the future. My argument is, at the end of the tribulation, the earth, after the bowl judgments and everything, the earth is just a smoldering ruin. The kingdom of the Antichrist has been cursed. And so the business as usual aspect, that's where we are right now, in my opinion. You have, in the days of Noah and Lot, you had violence and immorality rampant in the world. And that's what we see today. And you had this business as usual attitude of people, of sinners. Noah's building an ark and they're mocking him, and it looks like he's crazy, but you have a righteous remnant living for God, and the world basically has turned against God. So let's talk about some arguments here. So you said 1 Thessalonians 4 was the first passage you were quoting. At the end of that, it says, the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God. And the dead in Christ will rise first, and we who are alive and remain will be caught up, harpazo, together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. Thus we shall always be with the Lord. Therefore comfort one another with these words. Okay, so I want you to comfort me by telling me I'm going through the tribulation.
Well, that's hard to do. And that's the whole point. Paul's writing 1 Thessalonians because after he left there, some believers had died. And he told them all about the rapture. And he starts the whole passage in verse 13, says, I don't want you to be ignorant, about these things. I don't want you to grieve as those who have no hope. You want them to know, hey, your loved ones aren't going to miss the rapture. They're going to be resurrected someday. We're going to be caught up to meet them in the air. So, it's called in Titus 2:13, the blessed hope. Tim LaHaye used to say, if we have to go through the whole tribulation period, it's not the blessed hope, it's the blasted hope. And I think that's a good way to put that. But yeah, it's presented as a blessing. It's presented as grace. Lord's going to come and receive us to himself. It's presented as something that's to comfort us and to be a blessing to us. And if you have to go through half the tribulation or 3/4 of it or all of it, depending on those other views of the timing, it's not a comforting, blessed hope.
If you've read the book of Revelation, I don't know how you could ever be comforted by knowing that you're going to go through the seal judgments, the trumpet judgments, the bowl, any part of it. Now, there are also others, and I have a friend of mine specifically who believes this. And he says, well, we're going to go through the tribulation. He believes in post-trib. And he says, we're going to be spared from the wrath of the Lamb. Because, 1 Thessalonians 5 says, God is not destined us to wrath. 1 Thessalonians 1 says, Jesus delivers us from the wrath to come. He says, we are spared. God is going to supernaturally spare us in the tribulation from the wrath of the Lamb, but not the wrath of the Antichrist, the wrath of the beast. What do you say about that?
Well, the problem with that is, if you read the book of Revelation, the seals, the trumpets, the bowls, these are global. In the fourth seal, a fourth of the earth dies. In the sixth trumpet, a third of the earth dies. How is God going to be able to shield that many people on the earth from this wrath that's coming? It's global in its scope. And so this idea that post-tribulationists, in fact, all the views of the timing of the rapture all agree that we're exempt from wrath. So the mid-tribbers just say, well, the wrath doesn't start till the midpoint, so that's when we're caught up. Pre-wrath, that view holds that it's about 3/4 of the way through is when the day of the Lord or the wrath starts. Post-tribbers usually say the wrath is kind of concentrated at the end, and we're kept through that period of time, through that wrath. But when you get to the end of the tribulation with the bowl judgments, with the wrath of God, it's being poured out on the entire world. There's no way that you could see believers being exempt from that with the global scope of what's happening.
Well, and I said this scripture is talking about the Antichrist here. They worship the dragon who gave authority to the beast, who is like the beast. And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and was given authority to continue for 42 months. Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, those who dwell in heaven. It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. And so he was given authority to make war with the saints and to overcome them. So I said this to my friend, and I said, we are not exempt. I said, and he said, we are exempt from the wrath of God. We're not exempt from the wrath of the Antichrist. And he said, Christians have never been exempt from persecution. And so, and what I said to him, that's not persecution. That is the devil. That's Satan having license all over the earth to kill saints. And of course, both Revelation 7 and Revelation 20 show us pictures of mass martyrdom that occurs during the tribulation. So you don't believe that believers during the tribulation will be exempted from the wrath of the Lamb or the wrath of the Antichrist?
Yeah, it seems like believers during the tribulation period, there's that wrath being poured out. The exemption from wrath is promised to the bride of Christ. It's promised to the church. There'll be believers, people after the rapture who come to Christ, and they're going to be on earth during that time of wrath that's on the earth, because Jesus is opening the seal judgments, the trumpet judgments are being poured out, the bowl judgments are coming. So there's going to be wrath on the earth that believers then will experience. They're going to experience the wrath of God, the wrath of the Antichrist, and the wrath of Satan. It's going to all be there for them. But in the New Testament, in 1 Thessalonians 1:10, 5:9, as you mentioned, Revelation 3:10, these passages mention that we are going to be kept from that hour of testing that's coming on the whole world. So that's a promise to the bride of Jesus Christ. And in Revelation 3:10, it not only says we're going to be kept from the hour of the testing that's coming on the whole world. So we're not only going to be kept from the testing, but it says from the very time of the testing. So we're going to be kept from that time period, which is the coming time of the tribulation.
Well, Jesus said, this is in Luke chapter 21. Luke 21 is a end times passage about the return of Jesus. Take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and the cares of this life, and that day come on you unexpectedly, because it's talking about the rapture. It will come as a snare on all those who dwell on the face of the whole earth. Okay, that's the rapture. That's an inclusive statement. All those who dwell on the face of the whole earth. A snare, that's an animal trap, immediately. Watch therefore and pray always that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things and to stand before the Son of Man. So Jesus is telling us to pray that we be worthy to escape, not to endure. To me, if we're going to go through the tribulation, he's going to say, be counted worthy to endure all this, but he's saying be counted worthy to escape. And some people would say to me, Jimmy, you're an escapist. You bet I am. I'm an obedient escapist because Jesus told me to pray that way. And so I believe we're going to escape. So here's another objection that I heard recently, and that is the rapture is never mentioned in the book of Revelation. And so if there's going to be a rapture, why is it mentioned in the book of Revelation? You have an answer for that one?
Well, there's a few things. One is, and I mentioned just a minute ago, Revelation 3:10. Jesus says to the church at Philadelphia, which those messages to the 7 churches were to all the churches. It says, because you've kept my perseverance, I will keep you from the hour of testing, that hour that's coming upon the whole earth to test those who dwell on the earth. So it's a time of testing for these earth dwellers. And he says, I'm going to keep you from the time of that testing. Well, the only way to be kept from that whole time of testing is not to be there. So I think it's mentioned there. The rapture is clearly. Another thing that's interesting in the book of Revelation, the word ecclesia, the word church, is used 20 times in the book of Revelation. It's used 19 times in the first 3 chapters. And you don't have it again until chapter 22, verse 16. So there's no mention of the church on earth from Revelation 6 to Revelation 18, 19. There's no reference to it. So it's strangely absent. There's another important point is, and this is an interesting point for those who say, well, the second coming and the rapture and all that's just the same event. They're post-tribulationists. They would say that the rapture happens right at the second coming. But the difficulty with that is when you get to Revelation 19, when it mentions Jesus coming on a white horse to the earth, there's no rapture mentioned. I mean, they're totally absent. So post-tribulationists don't have any proof of a rapture in the book of Revelation either at the second coming.
Yeah.
In fact, what you see is, where's the bride? If you read Revelation 19, verses 1 to 6, the bride is in heaven, being married to the bridegroom and being readied, being clothed in fine linen. And then when you get to chapter 19, verse 11, the bride returns with Jesus to the earth. So if we're going to be in heaven, being married to Christ and being rewarded, and then returning with him at his second coming, it only makes sense. We have to have gone up to heaven sometime before that. That we're not going to get caught up to heaven in a split second of time and all that happens. So to me, those are points that it doesn't just say the rapture is going to be before this event, but those are strong, evidence that the church has to be in heaven before the second coming of Christ back to the earth takes place. We're coming back with him. So we have to go up sometime before him.
Listen, I hope that you enjoyed this show. And if you're a subscriber here on the YouTube channel, I appreciate it if you're not, hit subscribe right now, and you'll know when everything comes out from us and get everything that we have. If you're not a subscriber to endtimes.com, a paid subscriber, go to endtimes.com. You get the full Tipping Point show every week without commercials, as well as Dr. Mark Hitchcock's podcast that comes out every Thursday. We have an Israel update that comes out every Tuesday from Brian Schrauger. Articles, information, answering questions, all week long, we have information to encourage you and to enlighten you, to equip you to know what's going on in this crazy world that we're living in. This is the world of the end times the Bible talks about, and we want to help you to navigate that and to stay encouraged and focused, and to be able to help your friends and family, to be able to be informed of things when they're happening, things related to Israel, things related to end times. And so go to endtimes.com, $7 a month. Become a subscriber there. We have our conference coming up September 20th and 21st at Fellowship Church in Grapevine, Texas. We'd love to have you be a part of that. Again, go to endtimes.com. And we're also live streaming the conference, and so you can sign up for the live streaming there at endtimes.com. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time. God bless you.